I don't think you could stand up to a writer and say, your work is no good. I don't think you have the guts.
Not every Hollywood star is a hero. Some of them were downright evil behind the scenes. Let's dive into the chilling stories of the most infamous actors in Hollywood history. Number 25, Milton Berle. Ever wonder why one of Hollywood's most famous comedians was banned for life from SNL? Uncle Milty's antics are legendary. Milton Berle had a reputation as an unapologetic joke thief, earning the nickname the Thief of Bad Gags. RuPaul even called him out at the 1993 MTV Video Music Awards. The two got along poorly on camera and off, and what should have been a torch passing got awkward when RuPaul went off script. RuPaul ended his professional relationship with MTV shortly after the incident. Uncle Milty also earned a lifetime ban from hosting NBC's Saturday Night Live when he guest hosted in 1979. Berle attempted to take control of the entire show during rehearsals, upstaged his fellow cast members, and recycled old comedy bits. Lorne Michaels tried to keep the show from being rerun, but copies of the show surfaced in 2003. In this case, the Hollywood star's jerk behavior impacted other people's work.
So many legends are passed on by word of mouth. You never know how much truth there is to any of them. So just once, for the record, Milton, is it true?
Are you talking about my endowment?
Yes, sir.
Endowments? Is it true? All I can say is that I'm still working on it. No. That's been thrown at me so many times, that question. I don't know what's so thrilling about is it true. I really don't know. Because, I'm not the only man in the world. There are better men than me. Of course, you'll have to show them to me. No, I've had a little success with it. Even recently at 88. So it seems quite true. All I know that when I get an erection, I black out.
Number 24, Joan Crawford. Think all Hollywood beauty queens were just glamorous and sweet? Joan Crawford was known for being a master manipulator. While some actors are blatantly difficult to work with, there are others who are much more subtle, and perhaps no one played the role better than Joan Crawford. An undeniably beautiful woman, Crawford gained a reputation throughout Hollywood for using her body to control others. A master manipulator, Crawford sparked problems with cast members by reportedly sleeping around with fellow actors and directors. In arguably the most notorious feud in Hollywood history, Crawford developed an intense hatred for Bette Davis, who reciprocated the loathsome sentiment. Keeping the character, the beef developed after Crawford stole Betty's love, Franchoctone. It's an unwritten rule to keep your hands away from what's not yours, but Crawford never played by the rules.
I don't think you could stand up to a writer and say, your work is no good. I don't think you have the guts.
I haven't time for your grisly jokes.
You just wouldn't believe how much trouble it is to dispose of a dead elephant.
I've rocked it a few times, Buster. You enjoy making a person look like 2 cents, don't you? Well, get this straight. I don't like being made to look like 2 cents.
There's a name for you ladies, but it isn't used in high society, outside of a kennel.
Your vanity is magnificent.
You married a childish, empty-headed little tramp. Get your things out of this house right now before I throw them into the street and you with them. Get out before I kill you. You don't own the earth, not this part of it.
Your God and me could never be shipmates. And the next time you talk to him, you can tell him this from me, that Sadie Thompson is on her way to hell.
20 years of pure hell!
I'd like to ask you to stay and have a drink, but I'm afraid you might accept.
Number 23, Bette Davis. Think Betty Davis's feuds were just classic Hollywood gossip? Her temper could clear out entire rooms. She was one of the last screen goddesses. But get on the wrong side of Betty Davis and she was liable to detonate with all the force of 1,000 classy A-bombs. Her mood could turn on a dime. Writing in Vanity Fair, the producer William Fry recalled meetings with the star that began well, only to end in the social equivalent of Armageddon. One time, Davis and Fry were meeting the director Herschel Doherty for a meal when Doherty made the mistake of wagging his finger in Davis's face. As Fry recalls it, Davis unleashed such a tirade on the director that she managed to clear out half the restaurant. Immediately afterward, she snapped back to being her usual self, like nothing had happened. Legendary as Davis's temper was, her obsessive attention to detail was almost equally notorious. Another Vanity Fair article details her work casting a dog for her film, A Stolen Life. Rather than letting a pet casting director, those exist, get involved, Davis personally auditioned every mutt in L.A. The dog didn't even have a huge role. It was only in one key scene. According to the director, Davis's efforts were wasted away. The dog was too scared of her to do any canine acting.
This is definitely old hat. That goes for the way you're dressed, too. What are you doing to me? What's the matter with the way I'm dressed? You're a fine one to criticize anything I do. Deirdre, I have never made a practice of slapping people. But I'm dangerously close to slapping you right now. If I can't live one way, I can live another. Why not? I'm young and pretty and dumb. But you're smart. You can teach me the rest.
Yeah, you'd like that, wouldn't you? Then you could tell him a whole lot of lies about me. Scare him off, or maybe have him for yourself.
Sorry.
Number 22, Faye Dunaway. Think Faye Dunaway's reputation is just Hollywood gossip? Her outrageous demands and feuds tell a different story. The Faye Dunaway myth, a hellish one built on whispered tales of feuds, demands, and cups of urine tossed in directors' faces, has long overshadowed her genius as an actor. And when we do tend to talk about her acting today and not the chic glamour she brought to films like Bonnie and Clyde and the Thomas Crown Affair, it tends to be in reference to 1981's Mommy Dearest, her notoriously maligned Joan Crawford biopic that became catnip for drag queens the world over. But reputations of women in the public eye, in particular, are also funny things. Tired of expensive, low-effort scriptwriters for your YouTube channel? Autoscripter.ai is the ultimate solution. Say goodbye to low-quality, poorly retention amateur scripts that fail to generate thousands of views for your channel. At a fraction of the cost, Autoscripter.ai helps your videos go viral. In just 3 steps, Autoscripter.ai creates a polished script tailored to your needs. Just input your title concept, select your tone and style. The intuitive interface makes editing and refining effortless, fast, smart, and trusted by hundreds of satisfied users who have already discovered the amazing tool. Start your free trial today and watch Autoscripter.ai transform your YouTube channel. Just click the link in the video description below now. The idea of Dunaway as a kind of demonic harridan was spun by just a handful of major figures, among them Betty Davis and filmmakers Otto Preminger and Roman Polanski, and she has valiantly attempted to explain most of them away. She has blamed misogyny, her own desire for perfectionism, and a dogged will to survive in an incredibly abusive industry.
To close the show, saying that Dunaway could not meet the voice demands of the part.
When I auditioned for Mr. Lloyd Webber, I sang in my range. He cast me in that range, only later deciding to try to push me into a higher one. This is yet another capricious act by a capricious man.
Andrew Lloyd Webber was unavailable for comment today, but a spokesman for the playwright said it was concluded after several weeks of rehearsals and vocal preparation that the musical demands of the role were such that it was not possible for her, Dunaway, to perform as scheduled.
Number 21, Johnny Carson. Did you know that TV's king of late night was feared off-screen? Johnny Carson had a cruel dark side. Johnny Carson, the king of late-night television, was beloved by millions of viewers, but feared and disliked by many who worked with him. Behind his charming on-screen persona, Carson was known for being aloof, dismissive, and sometimes downright cruel to his staff and guests. His numerous failed marriages and reports of infidelity further tarnished his image. Carson's ability to entertain masked a darker side that few got to see, but many heard about.
Well, Brooke Shields is going to college. Did you read that? Brooke Shields is going to be one of 1,100 freshmen at Princeton University. She will graduate, I guess, in 1987. And I understand she's going to study high tech, so she'll always be able to get a job. I don't think she's going to have the greatest social life in college. Look, nothing, don't, wait a minute, Freddie, come here. Wait a minute, come on. Come here. Come on, just because it goes into the dumper, you don't go. You see that? Turns it back on me. It's for your own good. Come back. He disavowed himself from the show right off. Wait a minute. One joke, he headed for the chair. Anyway, what I started to say was, no, I think she's going to have a rotten social life. Dating Brooke Shields in college has got to be difficult. It's not going to be easy to get Brooke Shields and her mother in the backseat of a Volkswagen. Hey. Sure, now you come back. Right. Mother? Came back for the applause on that one, didn't he?
Number 20, Kirk Douglas. Think being a Hollywood legend means you're above causing chaos on set? Kirk Douglas was a power-hungry force behind the scenes. Kirk Douglas was Hollywood's biggest star when he made Spartacus in 1960, and he knew it, as evidenced by his behavior. First, Douglas broke Hollywood's blacklist by hiring Dalton Trumbo to publicly write the script for the film. Then, he decided to fire the original director days into the shoot. With Anthony Mann gone, he turned to his old friend Stanley Kubrick to finish the film. Kubrick clashed with his director of photography, telling him to shut up so he could handle the camera shots himself. Kubrick then fired one of the stars when he and Douglas decided it wasn't working out. Both of them fought each other over creative decisions on the shoot. In the end, Kubrick disowned the film and Douglas. Meanwhile, Douglas's meddling in production led to untold problems. Even so, Douglas later noted that Kubrick was a talented guy.
Talking with Kirk Douglas, we haven't been terribly personal tonight. Do you ever get really depressed, down, gloomy?
Sure, I think.
I want to go outside.
I mean, isn't that a human process? I think everybody. You go through different periods of your life where you sort of take self-inventory, and you wonder, what am I doing? Am I doing what I want to do? I think the person, really happiness in life, really is doing the work that you want to do. And I think for someone to be working at what he wants to do is very fortunate. So in that way, I think that I'm more aware now how lucky I am than I used to be. I think a lot of things that I used to take for granted, I appreciate now.
Number 19, William Shatner. Ever wonder why Captain Kirk earned the nickname Captain Jerk? William Shatner's bad attitude is legendary. William Shatner's Comedy Central roast was so good because it gave stars the chance to express pent-up rage they've had for years at this alleged Hollywood grouch. It turns out that while on the set of Star Trek, most of his co-stars hated him because he behaved too badly towards all of them. He garnered the nickname Captain Jerk for not showing up to Leonard Nimoy's funeral. It's not the most creative mean nickname, but it definitely gets the point across. While at conventions, he has a huge attitude that fans and co-stars are forced to put up with. At one point, He shouted at Denise Crosby, Tasha Yar from Star Trek, anytime she tried to answer a question. After seeing the way he acts towards his co-stars, it's impossible to have respect for the man. And as far as upsetting fans goes, he might not have to worry about that much longer because his bad behavior seems to be driving away any fans brave enough to stick around.
Acting comes down to a job of choices. An actor makes a choice, and that's what makes the delivery of that particular line indelible and that performance memorable as that.
You be quiet, please, and turn that off.
Kid, I was
turn
not
it off
a fan of
and
the
move
Star
back.
Trek TV
Thank
show,
you.
sorry to admit. Let me explain why. I was a dumb child.
Number 18, Charlie Chaplin. Was the beloved comedy icon secretly a tyrant behind the camera? Charlie Chaplin was known for being a brutal perfectionist. Sir Charles Chaplin's films were silent, but he certainly wasn't if the cast and crew didn't work up to his standards. He was well known in Hollywood as a perfectionist who would fly off the handle, become a complete jerk, and fire crew members at the drop of a bowler hat. Chaplin was married 4 times to women many years his junior. His first wife was 17 on their wedding day, and his second wife was 16. At 54, Chaplin married 18-year-old Una O'Neill, daughter of the famous playwright Eugene O'Neill. Una's father disowned her, but the couple remained married until Chaplin's death. He was reportedly an abusive husband to all his wives, and he had no qualms about sleeping with other women.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone.
Number 17, Wallace Beery. Ever hear the Hollywood rumor about an Oscar-winning actor getting away with murder? Wallace Beery was involved in one of Tinseltown's darkest tales. Film studios didn't like scandals involving their stars. In fact, they employed people whose job was to keep such sordid stories out of the papers. They were fixers like Eddie Mannix. He would cover up a drunken hit and run or an out-of-wedlock pregnancy. But in 1937, he might have helped Hollywood's biggest star get away with murder. There was a time when Wallace Beery was the highest-paid actor at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. He reached stardom with productions like The Big House, Billy the Kid, and The Secret Six. He won an Oscar for his role in The Champ, and on December 20th, 1937, he might have beaten a man to death. That man was comedian Ted Healy, creator of the Three Stooges. Allegedly, the two got into an argument at the Trocadero, which devolved into a fight outside the nightclub. Also involved on Beery's side were movie producer, mobster, Pasquale Disico, and an unidentified third man. The trio beat up Healy so bad that he died of his injuries a day later. Of course, this is all hearsay and Hollywood legend. Nobody was ever charged with anything. Beery left town in a hurry for a long European vacation, allegedly at the insistence of Louis B. Mayer, who organized a cover-up to protect his big star.
You picked that up.
Pick it up yourself.
You picked that up. Bracelets, eh?
After I pick you out of the gutter, this is the thanks that I get. Thank you.
Thanks for what? Listening you blowing about what a big guy you just been or you're gonna be? Listen, you never sent me a flower in your life. When I want flowers, I gotta go buy them. What woman wants to buy their selves flowers? You never sit and talk to me or ask me what I've been doing or how I am or anything.
Well, why don't you go out and get something to do? I ain't stopping you.
You bet you ain't. You think I sit home all day looking at bracelets? Ha! Of all the dumb bunnies. What do you think I'm doing while you're out pulling your dirty deals? Waiting for Daddy to come home?
What are you driving at,
You think
little...
you're the only man I know, you great big noise? Well, you aren't, see? There's somebody that just knowing him has made me realize what a stuffed shirt you are.
Why, you
don't like that, do you, Mr. Cabinet Member? Somebody else put over a deal.
You mean to tell me that you've been putting it over on me with some other man?
Yes, and what are you gonna do about it, you big gas bag?
Here, you tell me who it is or I'll break every bone
I
in
won't.
your
You
body.
can kill me and I won't.
I'll find out who it is.
Number 16, Zsa Zsa Gabor. Think Hollywood's glamour queen was all charm? Zsa Zsa Gabor's outrageous behavior was notorious, even to the point of slapping police officers. Zsa Zsa Gabor, the glamorous socialite and actress, was as famous for her extravagant lifestyle and numerous marriages as she was for her acting career. Gabor's public persona was one of charm and wit, but she was also known for her vanity and temper. Her infamous run-ins with the law, including slapping a police officer, highlighted her disregard for authority and rules. Gabor's larger-than-life personality often crossed the line into arrogance and entitlement, making her a difficult figure in Hollywood circles. Gabor made headlines in 1982 for reportedly demanding that several audience members in wheelchairs be removed from their seats close to the stage where she was performing. The alleged incident occurred during intermission of a recreation of her Broadway role in 40 Carats, when a row of 6 handicapped people were moved to the back of Philadelphia's City Line Dinner Theater upon Gabor's request. She told People it was an usher who moved the paralytics, she said. The theater owner, a terrible man, wanted me to take the ramp. Gabor was removed from a flight bound for Los Angeles during a layover in Atlanta when she refused to keep her dogs in travel kennels. The Delta agent came aboard. He asked her 6 times to comply. Spokesman William D. Berry told the Associated Press at the time she refused to comply. Each time he was responded to with inconsiderable vulgarity. When Gabor was pulled over in June 1989 for driving with expired registration tags, in her $110,000 Rolls-Royce Cornish convertible no less, she expected to get off with a warning. Gabor was handcuffed, arrested, and charged with 5 offenses: battery upon an officer, disobeying an officer, driving without registration, driving without a license, and having an open container of alcohol, the latter of which belonged to her husband, Prince Frederick von Anhalt of West Germany. Gabor blamed her reaction on her Hungarian blood. "I admit I have a Hungarian temper," she said at the time. "Why not? I am from Hungary. We are descendants of Genghis Khan and Attila the Hun." She was found guilty of battery and served a 72-hour sentence in prison in 1990.
Other women find love and happiness. I find only disenchantment.
But you find it so often.
Zsa Zsa Gabor seemed to know exactly what she wanted.
I am just a simple Hungarian girl, really.
Born in Budapest, she parlayed her beauty as Miss Hungary to win over Hollywood.
But darling, a girl can't make a success on instincts alone.
Over 45 years, she appeared in more than 30 films and 40 TV shows. She seemed most comfortable playing herself on game shows and in movies.
He made me so mad I wanted to slap him.
After slapping a Beverly Hills police officer during a routine traffic stop in 1989, Zsa Zsa was sentenced to 72 hours behind bars. She proved she could still command the world's attention, as she did with her 9 marriages. Her husbands included hotel magnate Conrad Hilton and Oscar-winning actor George Sanders.
I find many men attractive because I am one of those women who love gorgeous men.
She described her 7th marriage to lawyer Michael O'Hara this way, 1 year before their divorce.
I think it's an all right marriage, as far as a marriage can go. I think that people should really live in sin and not be married.
She's survived by her 9th husband of 30 years, Frederick von Anhalt. Through it all, she never gave up her lavish lifestyle.
Number 15, Orson Welles. Did you know one of cinema's greatest legends was also one of the biggest critics? Orson Welles didn't hold back on his opinions. He is one of cinema's giants, but Orson Welles looked down on many of his fellow actors and directors, viciously denigrating some of the biggest names of the day. Laurence Olivier was stupid, Spencer Tracy hateful, and Charlie Chaplin arrogant, and he could not even bear to look at Bette Davis. James Stewart was a bad actor, Joan Fontaine had 2 expressions, and that's it. And Norma Shearer was one of the most minimally talented ladies to appear on the silver screen.
There's been a certain amount of criticism of the trends of American influence on things like horror comics and indeed on the films. Do you feel that there's anything really, when you get down to it, in the suggestion that American influence is towards a spread of juvenile delinquency through the world?
I don't think that horror films or horror comics
contribute to juvenile delinquency. I think that they may encourage psychotics and homicidal and other dangerous types. But juvenile delinquency is, I think, a symptom of the illness of our age. It doesn't come from lack of playgrounds or bad comic books, but of a great longing for youth to have something to rebel against.
You wouldn't say that children are imitative and that they tend to imitate what they see or read?
If they were, they would have come from the Bear Pits and the Globe Theater and committed some rather extraordinary acts in the Elizabethan.
Number 14, Alec Guinness. The original Obi-Wan Kenobi wasn't so wise in real life. Alec Guinness was a control freak with bizarre habits. The original Obi-Wan Kenobi, Alec Guinness, was one of Britain's biggest screen icons. Classy, understated, able to blend perfectly into any part. He was the quintessential Englishman. At least on screen he was. Off screen, Guinness was a bizarre control freak who wouldn't let anyone make their own decisions and spent his every waking hour seeking to undermine his long-suffering wife via the telegram. In his definitive biography on the Star, Piers Paul Read revealed that nearly every meeting he'd had with Guinness over the years had been remarkably odd. Guinness apparently loved to meet for meals, where he'd ask everyone at the table what they wanted. The moment they replied, Guinness would declare, no, they wouldn't like that. Then called the waiter over and ordered them the exact opposite. According to Read, Guinness had an obsessively precise idea of how every interaction should go and refused to be contradicted on such matters. His home life was also odd. Guinness had grown up with an absent father and a mother who was a drunken thief, and his hatred of her had turned into a kind of reflective misogyny. As an adult, this expressed itself in open resentment and belittling of his wife, Marula, whom he considered stupid. Weirdly, Reed suggests Guinness recognized his own jerkbag nature and desperately tried to keep it bottled up, only to have it come seeping out. Marula, for her part, seemed to have decided to ignore her husband's oafishness.
There are suggestions there in the script. George Lucas suggested to me something of a samurai warrior in one way, hence I'm dressed in this, partly dressed like this. Something of a wise man, a kind of monk-like character. And I think that there have been, not borrowings obviously, but a suggestion from Tolkien's books of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
Did you feel working with actors or robots as actors presented any special problems for you?
It seemed to me to present far more problems for the robots.
Number 13, John Wayne. The Duke wasn't just a tough guy on screen. John Wayne's controversial views and actions left lasting marks on his legacy. John Wayne was known for his ultra-conservative views, but many people don't know that he referred to himself as both a socialist and a liberal early in his career. John Wayne supported Barry Goldwater for president in 1964 after the Arizona senator voted against the Civil Rights Act, and he made his most controversial remarks in the May 1971 issue of Playboy. Wayne said he believed in white supremacy and didn't support African Americans holding office until they could be educated to a point of responsibility. Wayne also publicly denounced homosexuality. He considered Suddenly last summer too disgusting ever for discussion and claimed Midnight Cowboy was perverse. Surprisingly, Wayne befriended Rock Hudson when they co-starred in The Undefeated, and they remained good friends until Wayne died in 1979. Some film school students still walk out of classes when John Wayne movies are screened, and Democratic leaders want to remove his name from the Orange County Airport. The Duke even got dissed by Public Enemy in the 1989 hit Fight the Power.
But what about the civil rights? I mean, it's necessary.
What about the civil rights?
Well, we have 20 million blacks on this continent.
Right.
It was necessary to extend rights to them that perhaps for the first 199 years were denied them in this free America.
I guess that they've had a pretty tough break, but
not quite as bad as you and your do-gooder friends would have them believe. They live as well here as they live in any other country over that 199 years. True, I think they do have a right to more rights, but it isn't a thing where the rest of the country should feel terribly guilty about anything because they have had a better life here and their fathers and mothers than they would have had anyplace else.
Number 12, Bing Crosby. America's favorite crooner? Not behind closed doors. Bing Crosby's dark family secrets were enough to chill any fan. Bing Crosby's oldest son, Gary, authored the 1983 tell-all biography, Going My Own Way, and claimed the crooner handled most disciplinary issues with a stern lecture and a studded leather belt. Gary Crosby was also punished when his brothers acted up, and the discipline didn't stop at spankings. Housekeepers allegedly gave the children the drowning treatment in the bathtub if they heard them talking in bed or if they woke up too early. 2 of Crosby's children suffered from depression and eventually committed suicide. Despite doing 7 road movies together, Bing Crosby and co-star Bob Hope weren't friends. Bob Hope once told a friend he simply didn't like Bing and at times detested him. Hollywood has seen too many jerks like this, but how many fans know what happened behind closed doors?
But Hollywood's #1 family man was very different behind closed doors. According to Gary Crosby's infamous Daddy Dearest Tell-All, Bing's fatherly love left a lot to be desired. After the death of the boy's mother, actress-singer Dixie Lee, Bing and his brood became seriously estranged.
As a child, you're trying to make sense of it, you know? Where is this grandfather that everyone talks about?
Denise Crosby is Dennis's firstborn and Bing's first grandchild. But she had almost no contact with her father and absolutely none with her superstar granddad.
Number 11, Lucille Ball. You might know her as the lovable Lucy, but behind the scenes, Lucille Ball was a ruthless perfectionist. Lucille Ball broke a lot of ground for what could be aired on television and revolutionized the modern sitcom, but she was very demanding behind the scenes. Tony Randall claimed that Lucy bossed everybody around and didn't spare anybody's feelings. In 1979, Richard Burton called Lucy a monster of staggering charmlessness and monumental lack of humor, and said that if he had been drinking, he might have killed her.
What needs explaining?
What's all this nonsense about you dancing with Van Johnson?
It's not nonsense. I did dance with Van Johnson.
Number 10, Mickey Rooney. The legendary Mickey Rooney was loved on screen, but his private life was filled with shocking scandals and betrayals. Mickey Rooney was married 8 times and boasted about having countless extramarital affairs in his tell-all autobiography, Life is Too Short. MGM studio head Louis B. Mayer reprimanded Rooney in 1938 for having a torrid affair with Norma Shearer because it caused problems during the production of Marie Antoinette. Rooney also claimed that he took his first trip to a bordello with his mentor Milton Berle and witnessed Tallulah Bankhead engaged in a lesbian encounter. The two could be jerks in Hollywood together. As if that wasn't enough, Rooney also outed his close friend Judy Garland for having a brief affair with a woman and described his first wife Ava Gardner's private parts in explicit detail. Once again, one of the alleged Hollywood jerks exhibits behavior that negatively impacts others. Hollywood journalist Craig Bennett makes even more shocking allegations in his 2019 book, True Confessions of a Shameless Gossip. Bennett characterizes the actor as abrasive, nasty, curt, and rude, and claims that Rooney's lengthy list of sexual conquests included betting a 14-year-old Elizabeth Taylor on the set of National Velvet when he was 24. Bennett also claims Rooney almost wore out the casting couch, auditioning young actresses for roles that didn't exist. If it's any consolation, it's widely believed that many of Rooney's claims were either exaggerated or completely false.
Gotta have a great show with 1 million laughs and color and a lot of lights to make it sparkle. And songs. Wonderful songs with you out there selling them.
Oh, it'll be wonderful.
And after we get the people in that hall, we've got to start them in laughing right away. Well, can't you just see it, Mary? The people are just packing in.
Number 9, Frank Sinatra. He might have had the voice of an angel, but Frank Sinatra's temper and mob ties made him a feared figure in Hollywood. Frank Sinatra, the legendary singer and actor, was infamous for his temper and connections to organized crime. His volatile nature often led to public altercations and feuds with other celebrities. Sinatra's demanding and sometimes bullying behavior extended to those who worked with him, making him a feared figure in Hollywood. Despite his immense talent and charm, his darker side was well known, painting a picture of a man who was both revered and reviled.
Oh, no, don't bring him there.
Frank Sinatra.
He'll hurt me.
There's Frank Sinatra.
I don't think he wants to.
He likes the
like
fish.
that.
No, he likes the fish.
Number 8. Bill Cosby. The once beloved TV dad hid a dark and disturbing secret life for decades. Bill Cosby's crimes finally came to light. Bill Cosby may have completely fallen from grace by this point, but for years, he is one of America's beloved TV dads. He can't find a single person to say a good word about him these days, but it's shocking that it took so long for his facade to crumble and his fans to scatter. The paternal persona that he had created for himself made the allegations against him all the more shocking. At this point, Cosby has been accused of sexual assault by more than 60 women, with some of their stories dating all the way back to the 1970s. Justice may not be perfect, but it seems like he's finally getting a little bit of what he deserved, even if he deserves much worse. In 2018, he was convicted of 3 counts and sentenced up to 10 years in prison. That's a start, I guess.
He's guilty, and the comic legend, once known as America's dad, now faces up to 30 years in prison. All the major networks broke in with the news.
Bill Cosby guilty today of 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault. Bill Cosby found guilty on all counts.
80-year-old Bill Cosby was found guilty of drugging and sexually assaulting Temple University employee Andrea Constand. She left the courtroom beaming. In addition to Constand, 5 other women testified they were sexually assaulted by Cosby in past years. Several of his alleged victims were in tears after the verdict came down.
Number 7. Henry Fonda. The all-American hero? Not so much at home. Henry Fonda's icy attitude left his family in emotional ruins. When Fonda came back from the horrors of World War II, he hadn't so much changed as crystallized into a hardened, distant man. His family got it worst of all. Fonda had extreme difficulty expressing his emotions, and whenever he felt his wife or children were demanding feelings from him, he would have terrifying outbursts of anger that reverberated through the house. And that wasn't all. Fonda did a number on both his children in incredibly awful ways. While Peter Fonda claimed his father never said, "I love you," or heard it back until Henry was elderly, Jane admitted that her father instilled in her the idea that unless you look perfect, you're not going to be loved. So yeah, he wasn't the best father, but he was an even worse husband. Fonda was deeply unhappy in his marriage with Frances Brokaw, who, it became clear, was suffering from bipolar disorder. It pushed him into the ultimate betrayal. Fonda was unfaithful, carrying on a long-term affair with society girl Susan Blanchard, a hot young thing who was 2 decades younger than him, and still that wasn't good enough for him. In 1949, after 13 miserable years and 2 children together, Fonda approached Brokaw and told her he wanted a divorce. Never one for empathy, he then dug the knife in more. He admitted to her that he wanted to split because he wanted to be free to marry his mistress, Susan. Ouch, Henry! His poor wife's reaction was beyond tragic. On April 14, 1950, just 10 days after she turned 42, Frances Ford Seymour took her life while still receiving treatment for her mental illness.
I have seen the film more times than I can remember, and whenever we come to that scene, I just bawl. It's hard for me to even talk about it, actually. The fragility that he showed in the scene, and it was something that he had a hard time doing in real life, showing his fragility. It just was so naked and vulnerable, and it touched me so deeply as it touches the audience. And the other thing is just seeing a beloved, loving relationship that has lasted so many decades between two people. It's rare that we see it on the screen, and it's rare that it's brought to us by two icons. So I think that it's uniquely moving and meaningful to people and hopeful.
Number 6, Burt Reynolds. Did you know that Burt Reynolds hated working on Boogie Nights so much that he almost fought the director? Director Paul Thomas Anderson was only 26 years old when he made his second feature film, Boogie Nights. Unfortunately, famed actor Burt Reynolds didn't like that, and they started off on the wrong foot. For starters, Burt Reynolds had to be convinced to star in the film through significant effort from Anderson, the studio, and many others. Part of the reason he even agreed to the film was that he was promised an Oscar nomination for playing the leading role of a porn producer. However, despite agreeing to the role, Reynolds didn't like anything about the experience. He frequently swore at Anderson, made life difficult for the crew, and generally acted miserable at every moment possible. It wasn't until the film garnered critical and personal acclaim that he started to warm up to the fact that he was even in it.
Back this to me, and I was just talking to a back.
No, I can talk to you too, Bert. Thank you. John, he's got scissors. He's got scissors.
No, I was just wondering who told you that, because...
My wife tells me that often.
She says, good morning.
I'm still married, as a matter of fact.
Yes, well, you...
As losing control of the program, ladies and gentlemen.
Not really. He's not a neatness freak anymore.
Number 5, Errol Flynn. The phrase, "in like Flynn," has a dark origin. Errol Flynn's reputation was destroyed by multiple scandals and trials. Charles Hyam's 1980 biography, Errol Flynn, The Untold Story, made shocking allegations about the iconic swashbuckler. In addition to claiming that Flynn had multiple same-sex affairs, Hyam accused him of being a Nazi sympathizer. His claims were based purely on circumstantial evidence and subsequently debunked in later biographies. The well-known expression "in like Flynn" was inspired by 3 separate statutory rape trials in 1942. He was acquitted each time, but the damage to his reputation was already done. His lifestyle choices also took a toll on his good looks, and he mostly played aging alcoholics later in his career. When Flynn died of a heart attack in 1959 at 50, the medical examiner said he had the body of an 85-year-old man. Number 4, Gene Kelly. Did you know that Gene Kelly was rumored to have secretly funded violent political movements? His dark side was well hidden. When dancer Sid Cerise came home from the MGM lot covered in bruises, her husband assumed that she must have been working with Gene Kelly that day. But Kelly may have done something far worse than being too rough with his co-star. In 1970, he reportedly donated to the Provisional Irish Republican Army. He met covertly with IRA leader Cathal Golding during an underground fundraising mission in the USA and gave him a check for £20,000. Kelly reportedly told Golding, "The money is for guns. I certainly don't want it going to any do-gooders." Gene Kelly's widow, Patricia Ward Kelly, disputed the allegations, which surfaced after his death. She claimed her late husband was proud of his Irish heritage, but he didn't have much money and wasn't a violent man.
If you worry, if you bother your head.
I do.
It won't help you, it will hurt you instead.
Number 3, Gene Hackman. Did you know that Gene Hackman's last film role ended in chaos? His behavior on set was shocking. Gene Hackman was at the end of his career when he was asked to star in The Royal Tenenbaums. He had no energy left for making movies he didn't want to make, and he really didn't want to make Wes Anderson's film, but he was persuaded by those around him. On set, he made Angelica Houston cry. He called Wes Anderson the C word in front of the entire crew, and he was a hateful individual to all involved. In fact, The only person Hackman didn't cross was Bill Murray, who came in on his off days at Anderson's request to maintain peace. After filming finished on the Royal Tenenbaums, Gene Hackman retired from acting and left behind a body of incredible work.
Were you in the service yourself?
Yeah, I was in the Marines.
Yeah.
I'd gone in when I was 16.
What were the circumstances leading up to the decision a 16-year-old kid makes about going into the Marine Corps for you?
I couldn't get laid, you know, and...
Number 2, Marlon Brando. The legendary Marlon Brando wasn't just difficult, he was a nightmare on set. His erratic behavior ruined many productions. Marlon Brando, considered one of the greatest actors of all time, was also known for his eccentric and often difficult behavior. Brando's disdain for the Hollywood system and his unconventional methods made him a challenging figure on set. His tendency to refuse direction, show up late or not at all, and his erratic behavior made him a nightmare for directors and producers. Brando's genius on screen was matched by his capacity for disruption off screen, cementing his status as one of Hollywood's most difficult stars.
That I cannot do.
I'll give you anything you ask.
We've known each other many years, but this is the first time you ever came to me for counsel, for help. I can't remember the last time that you invited me to your house for a cup of coffee. Even though my wife is godmother to your only child. But let's be frank, you never wanted my friendship. And you were afraid to be in my debt.
I didn't want to get into trouble.
I understand. You found paradise in America. You had a good trade, made a good living, police protected you, and there were courts of law. You didn't need a friend like me. But now you come to me and you say, Don Corleone, give me justice. But you don't ask with respect.
Number 1, Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers' comedic genius masked a troubled soul. His dark struggles and cruel outbursts made him Hollywood's biggest nightmare. Sellers was a difficult, demon-haunted man whose talent was crippled by bad health and serious psychological issues. Few comedic actors have left such an indelible imprint on cinematic history as Peter Sellers. With his fluctuating disappearances into characters, knack for physical comedy, and unpredictable personality both on and off camera, Sellers rocketed to international fame in the 1950s and 60s through uproarious film farce that still split sides to this day. But behind the laughs lay a complicated man troubled by lifelong questions of identity, turbulent emotions, and fragile mental health that both fueled his comedic brilliance and led to tortured relations with directors.
Peter, were you really dead, please?
Well, no, that's what the fellow said after. He said I was dead for 2 minutes, clinically dead. And I guess I was, you know. I don't know, because it was just like going to sleep. So I never be frightened of dying. People always think, you know, everyone goes, but it was just like going to sleep. I sort of, you know, you sort of dozed off, and then when I came to life again, it was like waking up, because they'd got this machine plugged into me and put in a massive electric shock. And it was the first time they'd used one of these. There's only 2 of them in the world. I was very lucky to be in Los Angeles. And
that's what was said about it at the time. If it had happened anywhere else to you, you would have been dead.
Absolutely, yes. And they didn't have time to strap me on this bed, you see. So the 4 of these doctors in this intensive care unit hanging on. But of course, every time my heart got this enormous shock, they did as well. And I sort of woke up and saw these guys in white coats flying up through the air. Very strange thing to see, you know, because there's white light there and a lot of guys floating around in the air. And I have no other recollection of it, actually.
Do you wonder where you were?
Yes, I always, you know, I thought, well, when am I going to see heaven? When am I going to see angels? When am I going to see whatever? I don't know. Maybe the transition time wasn't long enough, or I don't know.
If you enjoyed uncovering these shocking stories, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And hey, If you're craving more scandalous Hollywood secrets, check out the videos on your screen right now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.